Welcome back. It's been a while since I did a video. I am still actively collecting and I've got some cool stuff to do some cool videos on. And I wanted to start with one of my favorite acquisitions over the last, long time. This is the Clyde Challenor Viper. Absolutely beautiful knife. This is made in South Africa by Clyde Challenor of Clyde Challenor Customs. It is an M390 with a hand rubbed satin finish blade. It's a front flipper only, and this is a one of one with these really excellent and beautiful Damascus inlays into the handle. I just love the way that looks. It blends in really well, so it's fancy without being gaudy, and I really like this blade. So before we get into it, let's do a little bit of a size comparison. This is about a 3.5 inch blade. Here it is next to a PM3. A good bit larger than that. And here it is next to the PM2, almost the identical size if you line up the backs. So yeah, it's a good size. I'd say it's basically a full-size EDC knife. And it is a titanium frame lock. As you can see, there's no milling on the inside, so it is robust in the hand. I wouldn't say it's heavy, but it definitely feels like the weight that it looks like it would be, unlike some of the milled out knives. So like I said, this is made by a South African maker, Clyde Challenor. He doesn't make a lot of these. These are, he's a part-time maker, so the amount of knives that come out of his shop are pretty proportionate to that. But he does some really excellent work, and I think that this is design-wise one of my favorite EDCs. Is probably top two. This and the Waka. The Waka, Sharknivka Waka, if you're not familiar, is my all-time favorite EDC knife. So let's talk about some of the features of this knife that make me love it as much as I do and make me think it's as excellent as much as I think it is. First off, obviously the things I pointed out, the beautiful Dama and the beautiful blade, but it's the overall design decisions of the knife in general, the shape of the knife, that really I think make it excellent. The size in my mind is ideal with that 3.5 inch blade. I really kind of am drawn towards that 3.25 to 3.5 inch blade size. I think it's just about perfect. I know a lot of people like the smaller knives, but to me, I kind of like a little bit more of a robust knife. This knife, because it's front flipper only too, is really slicey. There's nothing in your cutting path, as I smudge it up, nothing in your cutting path as you're cutting, which I absolutely love. It's pretty thin behind the edge, but still has a nice robust blade stock, so it doesn't feel weak. The tip is quite fine, so sometimes I worry about that. But I have used this and it hasn't been a big deal. You'll notice there are some scuffs on the knife. I carry it regularly. I also have dropped this. I'm totally fine with that. My collecting habits are around knives that I enjoy carrying. So with that in mind, it is a little bit scuffed up, but I think that to me, that adds personality to the knife. So what are some of those design choices I was talking about? So I mentioned the blade. The other thing is actually there's a little bit of a dog bone in the handle shape. So what I mean by that is what you see on a lot of kind of American-made knives is that we have a lot of kind of flat back, and it looks nice and it's continuous with the the blade curve usually, and it goes right across. But what that accomplishes, first of all, is it's visually interesting to me, but second of all, it actually causes this knife to sit into your hand more because it kicks up in the back, and it kind of naturally puts you in this position. This knife doesn't really have like a good choke up spot. I'm comfortable up here, but it's really made to be held like this. and also the pinch grip is very acceptable with the way that my middle finger falls into this kind of finger choil. The other really noticeable thing about the design that I really enjoy is these scales. They are titanium, but they are not slab. They are contoured, and they really feel excellent in the hand. The ergos are just so good on this knife. Another thing, hidden hardware pocket clip. I don't care so much about hidden hardware. It does look good on this knife, but it is a very nice functional pocket clip that it has good retention, but not too crazy. I am picky about pocket clips sometimes because I feel like everybody feels like they have to do a milled pocket clip, and they have, you know, varying levels of success, whereas a stamped pocket clip basically always works really well. But I feel like people expect a milled pocket clip in the custom world, and you know, the execution of those aren't always perfect. I've had some bad milled pocket clips that bend, and then you have to bend them back, but so much material, it's hard to bend back. One of my favorite features of this knife, honestly, is actually the captured hardware. So as you can see, there are two spots on the show side of the scale that have captured hardware, and they are oblong shape, which, you know, keeps them from spinning. You can see the hardware on the other side that goes to those spots. But the coolest thing to me about this captured hardware is that not only is it captured, but also he contours the scales with the hardware in there, so they are perfectly flush. So the only way I can tell that there is hardware there at all, if I were to shut my eyes, is the textural difference. And I think that that is just, I don't know that I've ever seen that before, and that's just such a cool design choice, as well as it's so like practical, because you get this beautiful show scale, and you're not you don't have large hardware on the show side. I mean, that's not large hardware, but like what's in my pocket, this is the Carver Rambler. I don't mind the way this looks. I actually like the way it looks, but it's hardware on the show side, right? This is a liner lock, so both sides are almost show sides, minus the pocket clip. But just having that captured hardware be part of the design, and it's not just a tie connector, you know, T10 or T15 or whatever on that show side, is just a really, you know, intelligent and good choice for the design of the knife. And not only that, but it's more difficult. You know, these knives are obviously handmade, but I feel like there's a proclivity for knife makers to crank out knives sometimes, and they kind of, the hardware is just a second thought, and then we get all the same hardware across these really expensive custom knives that is boring, and it's not, you could literally swap it between knives. So when a maker goes through the effort to make his own hardware, or at least parts of his own hardware, I always strongly like applaud that. I just think that that is just going the extra step in a world where other people are not doing that. So if you go by what other people are doing, you wouldn't do that. You just buy it directly from somebody that makes hardware. Speaking of hardware, another cool detail about this knife is these inlays on both sides are mounted from the inside. They're not glued. I don't think you can catch on. Oh yeah, you can. You can see the mounting hardware on the inside for that. But part of that means that you have to drill through what you are inlaying. Well, in an effort to hide that there's a screw holding this, he also polishes the tip of the inlay hardware. And I just think that that's a great, again, great little attention to detail that you don't have to do, but it really adds to the finish of the knife, right? It makes it feel like every step, every little detail is really well thought out and never rushed. And I really think that that's what Clyde does. I think he really cares about each knife that comes out of his shop, and I think he spends the extra time to make sure they are all polished and you are really getting a beautiful, well thought out piece. His maker's mark is right here. I like that as well. The blade remained clean. You don't have any logos or anything or writing on the blade. It's just a little stamped maker's mark. It's a dagger with CCC, which stands for Clyde Challenor Customs. Again, a beautiful design choice. Another great feature of this knife is the jimping. So it's got good jimping on the spine. It obviously is a front flipper only. Like I said, I mean, you actually can kind of spy flick this. As you see I did there, you can kind of get enough purchase under this, but it is a front flipper only design. So he really thought about the jimping again. Well thought out, just beautifully executed. So what you have is actually on the down the spine of the blade a little bit, you have a little bit more of an aggressive jimping pattern for that thumb rest position, right, when you're using the knife. But near the top of the blade for the front flipping, it gets finer. So it grips your finger better and is less aggressive on your finger when you are using that front flipper. And so what that means is that this is a absolutely excellent front flipper, I say as I fail 3 times in a row. It's that front finger that I'm not very good at. So with that, varied jimping pattern, what he's accomplished is having functional jimping for when you're using the knife, as well as functional jimping that doesn't hurt your finger when you're flipping the knife open. So I just think that is absolutely brilliant. Well executed. I love to see those well thought out items when looking at a knife. Again, there is a default to think about all the parts of the knife except for the finishing pieces. And I think that a lot of custom knife makers and knife makers in general think through those things, and they get 95% of the way done with the knife, and then they just throw default hardware in, or just slap some jimping on that's not functional, and let alone gradiented, so it can be multifunctional. So I think that Clyde just does think through each one of these things and executes them really well. Another notable piece, I already mentioned the polished hardware in the inlays, but for the over travel stop / lock bar insert that this has, he also polishes that hardware, and that looks great. It's matchy. It makes the whole thing look good. Has a little bit of machining on the upper part of the scale, or toward the pivot part of the scale. Also looks great. It's kind of standard for this model when it doesn't have inlays. It adds a little bit of visual interest to the titanium show and lock side. Really, it's honestly just an excellent knife all the way around. So well thought out. Clyde Challenor is not super well known, honestly. He's kind of one of those guys, if you know, which I appreciate a little bit, because as a collector it makes him a little bit easier to get. But everybody I know who's had one of these knives or does have one of these knives is extremely impressed by it. And I think that he deserves more attention than he has, and I'm glad I have one before he gets that attention. But honestly, he just does such excellent work, and he's in a caliber above a lot of people that are full-time makers. I genuinely think that. Anyways, a really just excellent knife. I've been wanting to do another video for a long time. I've just been very busy summer, and I was trying to figure out which one it would be, and I think it had to be this one, just because of how incredibly impressed I was by it, or have been by it, how much I love it, and how kind of slept on Clyde Challenor is. You don't see a lot of these around, and a lot of people don't have them because he's kind of not one of the really popular makers, but he's honestly a caliber above a lot of those really popular custom makers. Sorry, the sun has moved, or the clouds have moved in, so it's gotten a little bit darker in this video. Anyways, this is the Clyde Challenor Viper. I absolutely love this knife. It's one of my favorite EDCs right now. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know what you think of front flippers. And I appreciate you coming back and checking out my videos. I'm going to be doing more videos again now as my time permits it more. It's getting less busy. We're coming out of the busy season at work, as well as having people visiting over the summer. That's all basically over now, so I will be putting out more videos. I've got a lot of cool stuff in my collection that you guys haven't seen. Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one.